I think we're ready to get going. Can everyone hear? Oh my gosh, okay, thank you. So next slide, please. So just like to start out with the note that pledging is just an important part of being in this community. And we have a professional staff of which 80% of the budget we're going to go through is paying for our staff. And even though so much of what we do is our volunteer time, we wouldn't be able to do what we do as volunteers without that professional staff. So it's really, this is an important part of our stewardship. Next. Okay, here we go. So where we are in this process, we wanted to hold this first conversation early before we get to distributing the pledge drive materials, which is on March 9th. Ultimately, we're working down towards June 8th, which is the congregational meeting where we'll vote on the budget for next year. And that went away. Oh, and then there could be a couple more conversations, both online and another one in person, April 27th. So that'll be after we've actually seen what the pledges, what they look like for next year. And so we'll do a lot of reworking on the budget. And then the board sits and tries to figure out how we're going to make this whole thing work over a couple of meetings. And Eric, once tax season's over, Eric goes deep dive into our budget. And so anyway, so we're at the very beginning of this process. Next slide. So one of the things that's been a message over the past couple of years is investing in the congregation. We've done a lot of work with extra pledge drives for like the shingles or for our winter appeal. We have also, last year, we did a number of adjustments on pay. I think 2 years ago, we did a cost of living adjustment, which is what COLA means, and that was actually a fairly significant adjustment in pay for all of the staff. So last year, what we did is the UUA had put out fair compensation guidelines, which said, this role for this many years experience, this size congregation in this location, here's what the pay should be. And so we made those adjustments and changed the sort of staff level of a couple people like Leah, who's now program director, and JC, who's now RE manager. And we also, last year, we started partnering with the TFAC, is the Trust Fund for All Children. They're the ones who raise money for the orphanage in Haiti. And so they raise the money, they give it to us, we transfer it to the Foyer Angelique orphanage in Haiti, and we get a sort of a 5% fee for processing that has been able to probably put about, as I think you said, about $1,000 per quarter, because they do it on a quarterly basis, into our fundraising efforts. We just starting to work with a youth group called the Summer's End Conference. It's going to be the same sort of relationship. They're out raising money. The money will come to us, and we pass it through them. And we have an event coming up, which I don't think we've talked much about this yet, which is called Beyond the Binary event. It's going to be here in April, where we're a co-host. So lots of ways that we're acting on our values from a sort of a financial and structural perspective. And this year we've welcomed 12 new members to date. I was actually, I was tuning in online when I saw the number of people, so I had to make the adjustment to this slide in real time. And last year we added, I think at this point last year we had added 17 new members. So anyway, our investments are paying off. Next slide, please. So apologize for charts, but sometimes the pictures states 1,000 words. So this is our trend in pledging. So it's been going up year and year, and this does not include the siding appeal, where we got $50,000 last year, 2024, or the $20,000 for the winter appeal. We've sort of put those as fundraising efforts as opposed to part of the pledge numbers. And then also, 2023 and prior, we had received money from what has been known as the Angel, because nobody knows her name, or somebody knows her name, but I don't know her name, or their name. And so they would help us in budget shortfalls. And then in 21 and 20 to 23, we actually got money from the federal government because of the pandemic that we applied for. So those numbers are not on here, but that's just to show you that pledging has increased, but we've had other funds to help us meet the budget shortfalls between expenses and revenue. Oh, get to the mic.
The pandemic relief that we got like 15,000 in fiscal year 2021 and about 40,000 in fiscal year 2023. And that is one of the reasons why we have reserves, because not only because of the Angel, who contributed at least 3 years, and it was like around 20, I think one year was like 20, another year 25, another one 18, and then this pandemic relief, and that really helped us build up our reserves, but also plug budget deficits that otherwise might have been there if those funds were not available.
Next slide. So one of the things that I know we've been accepting new members, but the new members have been actually compensating for the fact that we have been losing members. So in 2023, we passed a resolution to define more tightly what a member, how we define a member. And so in 2023, we start seeing, that's the blue line, we start seeing member numbers go down. And of course, from a pledge perspective, it's important to think about the pledge units. So like both Susan and I are members, but we are one pledge unit. And so that's true for many of our members. So pledge units have also slightly gone down as well. The thing that goes up is the amount of pledges per unit. So we have been continuing, as we've been having this message about investing in the congregation, all of us who do pledging, that number has been going up over the past, at least the 4 years. And we didn't really have good numbers prior to that, but I think that's probably true for past history. Now our pledge numbers, so we report to the UUA on an annual basis what our membership numbers are, and they, since 2003, before 2003, we had like a big jump, but since then it's been between 130 and 156 members. So again, which one of those is accurate? Is the 156 really accurate? Because maybe we had people on the rolls who weren't really members. But I think safe to say that we have a pretty steady trajectory of keeping around the 130 to 140 members. Thank you. So next slide. So this is this current year budget. We're in fiscal year 2025. As of earlier this month, we made some adjustments because we knew that the pledge income is what we budgeted for last year. We received a $15,000 donation from an estate that for right now we're putting in contributions, plates, and gifts. If we don't need that money, we may put it towards the endowment. Rental income, we actually projected a higher rental income. We decided, just looking at the trend over the year, to just bring that down a little bit to $21,000. And so we had projected last year that we would do a transfer from our reserves of $12,000. We have lowered that, at least at this point, to $8,000. So we're making that number, and one of the things that we've wanted to do over time is to draw less and less, if any, from our general endowment. So that makes the average pledge per unit, remember those pledge units, around 2,405.
So the contributions for plates and gifts, that's the 15,000, that was the gift, is in there. Is that correct? So we've been having 15,000 in just plate? Well, no, but other gifts too, probably. Yeah. I was curious what the plate. Yeah,
also in that number is the plate, which is about on track for about 10,000, and that's kind of what it's been. And also in that number is the as Jeff mentioned, the trustees for all children money's in that, and that's, you know, right now it's probably a couple of thousand actually is coming from that, but it's assumed that would get to probably around 4,000. Then there's just miscellaneous gifts that people have made outside of pledging.
Yeah, I might have got that wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, so we have money in CDs and in a money market. So I think we have in CDs probably about 80,000. I wrote it down. $86,000 we have in CDs right now. And we also have $10,000 in a money market, and then probably, as of right now, which changes, like, I mean, it could be $15,000 tomorrow, but like around $30,000 in our operating account. So right now, any deficits are being funded by bringing down our CDs. So, but no, yeah, so no money's coming from the endowment itself.
Next slide. So we had an offsite back in November, I think it was early. Huh? Can you hear me? No. So back in early November, and so these were goals that we had set for the board setting for itself for the year. First one, we've been doing a lot of work with the Leadership Development Committee. So first one was find a way to incorporate on the gifts to the congregation. Second one, which is importance today, is to create a balanced budget that reflects our values and goals without drawing from reserves. I'll say that's a goal, okay? That's not necessarily what will happen, but that's a goal. And then support the transition of our religious education program. So at that point, I think we knew Andrew would be leaving, even though he had not left yet, but we knew there was going to be a transition. We need to hire a new director of religious education. So that was, we felt that the board had to play an important role in that transition. So here we come to, we've got, a question.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm confused about what the first item means. Finding a way to center on congregational gifts, was it? What is that?
So, and if you remember, Eric, you feel free to answer that one. I think that meant that we wanted to find ways of understanding across the membership what the talents are that are out there, and bringing people into, whether it's a leadership role or, being in, how to get into different committees and stuff like that. And the Committee on Welcoming Membership does a great job of, new people come in and let's, channel you into something, but then it's like once you're in there, then how do we determine, where else people could contribute with their skills? And so the Leadership Development Committee always comes, it's somewhere in the process, and they go, we got to find new board members. We got to find new people to replace us. And it's like we wanted to get ahead of that as opposed to always be, doing that on deadline.
So non-monetary.
Non-monetary, correct. Okay, so there's 3 budget scenarios we're going to show here. And the first one, and again, now we're on to next year's budget. And total expenses, we're projecting that they're going to increase slightly. I think it was from like 283 to 295. As I said before, 80% of our expenses are staff salaries. A lot of the program expenses can be associated with a restricted account. So like the music program, there's a restricted account, which is not part of our operating budget, that money can go to that, or, there's various things. So there's not a lot of, from the expense side, at least my personal opinion, there's not a lot of room to change that number, the 294. And so from how do we make up the revenue that's going to help us balance the budget, because we have to balance the budget. We did figure in this that we're going to give a cost of living increase to the whole staff. we figured in that we would do 2 major fundraisers, a fall and a spring. This year we're doing 1. So we're trying to like improve our fundraising game, if you will. This does, if we don't change the number of pledged dollars or dollars of pledging per unit, we'll have to draw $27,621 from reserves in order to balance the budget. Anything you want to add to that before we ask for questions?
Let's see. So the expenses like year over year from compared to fiscal year 25, fiscal year 26 expenses are projected to go up about $10,000, and that's largely the COLA increase, about $6,000. And, you know, unfortunately with the insurance kind of going up all over the place, especially commercial insurance policies, our liability insurance went up $2,000 in and of itself. And, you know, and then we're hoping to give more support to Sunday services who have been kind of operating off of a pretty restrictive budget over the years, and yeah, and to give that committee more support.
So scenario number 2, basically the expense side stays the same, and we say if we draw 0 from reserves, then our average pledge per unit needs to go up by $323, which is roughly a 13% increase. So it's kind of like if we all who are pledging just put in that little bit more, we'll be able to basically come up with an even budget without looking at any other changes to both sides of revenue and expenses. Of course, the one thing that's kind of a wild card is we don't know what membership, and we've got at least 12 new members this year. So does that change the official member count? At least the recent people that come on, will they pledge for next year? We don't know yet.
Yeah. So, and I would say too is, I mean, as we all know, I mean, this is a self-funded budget. I mean, we don't get money from outside sources, and so we're pretty much member funded. And I would say between what we raise through pledges, what we raise through fundraising and plate income, that represents roughly 88% of the budget. The other parts of the budget, rental income, gifts and transfers from the endowment, they make up a relatively, obviously small part of the income channel that funds our budget.
So one of the things that we've been discussing with the board and with Rachel is the fact that we need to hire a new director of religious education. So if you look at from UUA guidelines about what staffing for RE would be, we actually have been understaffed in terms of number of hours per week. So this shows that, so we've got like 31 people, young people in our religious education program. So that would say we'd need, a coordinator, which could include the interns, to be around 12 to 15 hours a week. Well, JC was working 9 hours a week to compensate for Andrew's reduction in hours, and she still is doing that. So, but next year, if we hired another director of religious education and they're working more hours, then she would go back to 4 hours a week. So that still is like way under what the recommendation is. And then, the director of religious education should be 22 hours a week or to 25. So we've talked about, could we get somebody to be half-time, in which case they'd also be, they could get benefits, healthcare benefits, et cetera, just doing that, going from a director of religious education as 15 hours a week, which was what Andrew was doing, and that's what Rebecca was doing before him. That adds roughly $10,000 to the staff salary line.
Including insurance?
Including the insurance. And of course, doing this, there's the money aspect of it, but there's also the fact that, having a better staffed religious education program, supports families more. It could be another avenue for growing. So if we're going to continue to invest in the UUSA, this would be this is definitely an aspiration for us to do. And Rachel, I don't know if you want to, since you've been doing a lot of the legwork on this, do you want to add a few points?
So I discovered, after having been told repeatedly that such a thing exists, but then I actually saw it, a group of religious education professionals and compensation professionals from the UUA made this really clear tool of an hours calculator for how long does it actually take to do the work of religious education. And I plugged in all of, not aspirational duties, but the current duties expected for a DRE in our congregation, which includes the things that are in the job description and the things that I get an email of, why wasn't the DRE at that? Because that's an expectation we hold, whether we write it in the job description or not. And when I put all of that in, tweaking it various ways, it came out to 21 to 24 hours per week that we are expecting of a DRE in our system. And that still includes so much member volunteer labor. This is not saying that we wouldn't have all of this member work that we depend on. This is the position as it is now, realistically takes 21 to 24 hours a week. So getting this up to 20 hours a week probably feels doable, right? There might be some weeks where some things still go undone, realistically. But it is not just me deciding that this position needs to be 20 hours. It is best guidance from the Liberal Religious Educators Association and the UUA, and it is also for religious educators who are working on their credentialing process. Being a half-time DRE means that they accrue credentialing points faster than a quarter-time DRE. So the position is more valuable also to somebody who is in the credentialing process at 20 hours. They can get there twice as fast, realistically. And that's part of what this is about. It's we want to have a doable position and also an attractive position for hiring, because we're looking forward to hiring our next wonderful DRE. And we hope that that'll be a good fit and we all collaborate and have a really good time together. So it feels like a big jump to increase these hours, but all of the guidance that we're getting and the potential benefit and I'm hoping job satisfaction of our incoming DRE is part of this as well. And do you have anything to add, Annie, Allison?
So I will say that I'm not on the RE committee, but I do a lot downstairs, and I was the RE chair before, under Rebecca, through COVID. And what you're saying matches what I would say is an expectation of what we've been running for programming downstairs. It takes about 6 adults downstairs each week, many of whom are volunteers. And when I think about the number of programs that we are running, that 20 hours does sound to be about right in terms of junior youth group, OWL, elementary, nursery, etc. And it is busy downstairs. So if you haven't been downstairs and volunteered yet, please come down so that you can see the robust programming that is happening. I currently have 9 in OWL right now, which is the biggest OWL group that I've taught here in the last, I've taught OWL 3 times. So we have a larger group with more diverse ages coming through the door and a lot of new families. Most of the kids in OWL that I'm teaching, I don't personally know, which is also a change. So I think that it feels right, what you're saying. That seems to match my personal experience as someone who's been downstairs for the last 9 years.
Right now, we have the hot religious education program that people are showing up for, right? It's very exciting. I would say that Northampton, which is a congregation that is 100 members stronger than we are approximately, they have larger RE enrollment, but lower average Sunday attendance. Springfield does not have very many kids in RE. Yeah, Greenfield, Northfield, Bernston, not happening. No RE happening. So we are like one of the stronger religious education programs in the Valley right now for families to bring their kids to. So a lot of congregations are experiencing new members and new RE enrollment. Like we're not unusual in that. We do have a high proportion of, and I don't have the exact numbers, but a high proportion of RE enrollment to membership. And I would say that a lot of my colleagues are talking about we have dedicated people who come every week, and yet we don't know where the young families are. Apparently they're coming to us, which is really cool. And I want to make sure that that we are meeting their ministry needs, right? That this is not a congregation that is like for adults and we have things for children, but this is actually a congregation for all ages. And so it feels really good that it seems like that's what's happening. But it's also hard in that families who have RE age kids are usually not in the best position to make large donations, right? Their finances are occupied raising a family, which is very expensive. So that's a thing for us to bear in mind, that this is a whole congregation investment, and we're not expecting RE families to carry this increase alone. This is benefiting the whole culture and experience of our congregation to have a robust RE program, and the whole congregation needs to pay for it.
So this is just basically factoring in that one change from the expense side from the previous scenarios. So the new Director of Religious Education, again with benefits, increases $10,000. So therefore we would need to increase our pledge per unit to basically another 439. Not 439 over the previous scenario, but 439 over what our current pledge per unit rate is. Any other questions? Anyway, thank you very much. And we recorded this, so we're going to post it to our website. If anybody wants to go through it again, you may. So, thank you.
Thanks, Jeff, for putting this all together.